Hello. I wanted these sessions in the beginning. I was just talking about I wanted these sessions to be also participatory, so we can learn the material together and enjoy it. So this is part of the series of the Torah of the Earth classes, which is on ProStoneCenter.org slash. These ones are on Torah, and then we have a lot of other classes as well. So you could check them out, and a number of them are live, and they are also recorded and put up there to watch again. And this class we're talking about different aspects of nature in the class, and this one particularly is about hand washing and the ritual of hand washing and some of the deeper meanings of it, and we'll kind of explore them without reaching any conclusion whatsoever, and we'll meander around it, and we'll end up looking at some biblical sources and commentary, and then a very interesting chassidut, which is the Me'ashloach on the concept of hand washing. So that's what we'll do. I think I'll share my screen. Does everyone have the sheet?
No, not yet. No, I don't have it yet.
Okay, well, I'll share my screen.
Okay.
There's the reading. So just, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a second. So just to introduce this concept of hand washing, there's a very, it's not, at this moment right now in time where we are, obviously hand washing is something that people are doing over and over and over again, and in a ritualized manner. So I know that I was taught during this time that you have to wash your hands for a certain amount of time, and you should sing a little song so that you know that you're washing your hands for the right amount of time. So people tell me different songs that you're supposed to sing, so that you know that you did it for 30 seconds, and that you should make sure to not just wash this part of your hand, but you should wash the top of your hand. And definitely hand washing has a lot of rituals around it and a lot of details, whether it's in a sacred or secular mode. The feelings around hand washing are usually pretty detailed. So the type of hand washing that we're talking about is ancient Jewish ritual of hand washing, and it's in that context. So it's many of the things inside of the Torah are earlier than other divisions of thought. So in the sense that you have geography as like a study, and at one time, hundreds of years ago, there would be somebody who studied geography. That meant that they studied political geography, and they studied the land itself, and they studied the plants and animals on the land, and it was the study of everything on the land, all of geography. But then, as thought emerges and moves through time, you have more and more specialists. So you have political geography, and then you have ecological geography, and then you have all these different aspects of geography, and somebody studies just that one. So the Torah is even in its particular form is so old that it's pre any of those divisions. It's even pre the division between science and art. So the way I like to think about it is Torah, art plus science equals Torah. It's so if when trying to be a science, it fails because it has too much art in it. And when you analyze the Torah as just an art, it also flops because it has just too much of a scientific particular details involved in it. So, but what it does beautifully is this seamless flow between something like a science and something like an art that is just moving without boundaries through both of those areas, which usually in our minds are separated. So the same thing with this concept of hand washing. It has things that are quite scientific and things that are definitely totally are like an aesthetic and not a science. And and it also has like a science of spirituality. So as opposed to just a good feeling or an amorphous spiritual qualities, there's very, very detailed descriptions of spirit that are acting as if it's as particular as the material realm. Like it can have those, like it's scientific in a sense. But again, it's like art plus science equals Torah is the equation that I would use, especially for this hand washing. And we'll see different details in hand washing that are, some of them are on spiritual nature. Some of them seem like we're talking about cleanliness, and some seems like it's talking about not cleanliness, but some sort of artistic form. I know that if I remember the story correctly, my father told me that he asked his aunt, I think, he was interested in Judaism, and because but didn't know about it, or wanted to. He was young. I hope I'm saying the story right. And asked what Judaism was, and his aunt said, "It's cleanliness." That was the sum up of the whole thing. So, and that's it. As if you stop there, it's as deep as it gets, because there's truth, a lot of truth in that. Cleanliness of what type of sort? It's almost like an artistic cleanliness, a spiritual cleanliness, and also a physical cleanliness. But none of those boundaries are firm. But in the Torah, all of those membranes between these ideas are completely fluid, and there's just moving in between each one of these art, science, spirit, physical. Is it about dirt? Is it about spirit? It's all one thing. It's dirt, spirit, not artistically nice. Like just moving through all that. So, well, we'll start with some of the sources, and then hopefully we'll have enough time to get to the Meshloach, which I have in the end of the sources. Does that sound good? Yeah, I like the Zoom thumbs up. Okay. If there's any questions, we could pipe in. I'll also have the chat open if you want to write it in the chat. And I'll bravely go and do the first source. Oh, hey, Aaron. Good to see you. So, Erchat binikayan kapai. I wash my hands in innocence. Ve'asavva es mizbechecha havaya. So, and I walk around your altar, havaya. Havaya is the name of the creator, and the reason why I'm using that name is it's not the four-letter name of the creator. It's actually just Hebrew for existence. And Havaya is the source, and the creator in Jewish thought is the source of existence, the thing that was, is, and always will be. The thing that is, ising. So that's going to be, I'm going to keep using that term. Now already in the Tehillim, this is the psalm, you see hand washing connected with a innocence, with a cleanliness, and also there's a ritual aspect to it. The walking around the altar, right? So it's like clean as far as like clean, innocent. There's something about that. I'm innocent, meaning that I'm clean. It's the same thing in English. And already there's something about needing to be innocent to perform a ritual, needing to be in innocence. So who wants to read the next one? Oh, never mind. I'll read that one too. So it says, "Ulahavdil ben hakodesh uven hachol uven hatame uven hatahar." And this is talking about specifically the Aharon and his sons. So we must distinguish between the sacred and the secular, and between the unclean and the clean. And so that's English for tuma and tahara. Tuma is probably best translated as tuma, just that, and tahara is probably best translated as tahara. It's again it's a term that is best not differentiated into only one. Like it's not cleanliness as far as physical, and it's not spiritual cleanliness, and it's not an artistic type of innocence or cleanliness. It's all of them sort of mixed together. The other thing is that when we talk about the source of creation, the source of creation being the thing that you return to. So when you have teshuvah, which in Hebrew is return, you're returning to the waters. So in a lot of these classes, we're talking about the agricultural cycle or the natural cycle of the seasons. And you have spring, where you emerge, where the babies are born, where the grain is ripening, where you're coming out from the sea and up onto the beach. That's like spring. And then as you move up the year, you go from Pesach, which is the spring holiday of spring, you're moving to the middle of the year, which is Shavuot. And Shavuot is the holiday where you're bringing your first fruits, and now you're also bringing the full bread, and that's the end of the grain harvest, and it's the end of the milking. So that's when the calves are weaned, and so you have cheese, and then also it's the beginning of the first fruits harvest, and that's Shavuot. So then when you get to the top, and that's sort of also in the like ascent of a person where they receive their Torah, meaning receive their mitzvah, meaning to understand what their mitzvah is in life, to understand what it is they were put here on earth to do, and to know the action to take, the thing to do. That is received at the top of the mountain. But at the top of the mountain, where you receive your full definition and you understand what you are, so the first part of the year, which is what, and at this exact moment we're going through, which is you're trying to not get rained on as the grain is ripening. You don't want the rain to fall on to the grain, because then it gets, in Yiddish, schmutzig, it gets dirty, and then it gets moldy, and it ruins the grain. So that water is like the depths of creation. It's the primordial potential. And all of being is coming out of that primordial potential, which is down in the bottom of the ocean. It's the cold, dark, and wet that was there before anything ever existed. And that water is the thing that gives life. That potential is the thing that gives life to the actual, to the beings. And the ascent of being, going up to the top of the mountain, is when you reach the summit and the culmination of your being, and you know who you are. while you're trying to grow and ripen and get to that point, you're trying to make sure not to allow the potential and desires of anything else to rain on your parade. So you want to become clean and dry and sharp, so to know the singular path that you need to take, at least for that moment. But then as you descend down the mountain, you have the process of teshuva, which is returning to the sea, returning to the place where you came from. So all of anything that is in potential desires to come into actuality, and anything that is in actuality and it has the desire to go back to its source, to shed its being and return to its source of being. And when you go down, and then that's a Shavuot, and that's the ascent, that's the descent from Shavuot down to Sukkot, down to the bottom of the year. And right there, once you already have your definition, you're bound to get dirty, right? Once you know what you need to do and to take an action, you're going to get dirtied. It's going to happen. That's what life is. It's just, mistakes will be made. So that time period after Shavuot is the time of like destruction, and that's where you have the 3 weeks of Tammuz and going into Tisha B'Av, where things are broken. To build the third temple, you need to break the second one. To build the second one, you need to break the first. And to build the first, you need to knock down the beauty that was there before any sort of building was there. So the process of creative destruction, it happens there. Once you know what you need to do and you take an action, someone's going to get hurt, something's going to happen, and you're going to end up dirtied by that. And then there's the descent back to the water, which is down to Sukkot, where everything gets gathered and cleaned. And so there's this process of Tuma and Tahara. And the Tahara is when the waters rush completely over you and you get a restart. That's like going to the mikvah, and that's Tahara. So, and then when you go out, and then you're clean. The Tuma is just a product of being, and it's not a bad thing, because anything that exists receives Tuma, receives that just from the fact that it exists, just from being. And so that's not understood as, and I think probably in the translations there might be a translation of good and bad, but it's not understood as good and bad, just part of life. You get dirty after the day goes by, and then you wash off. It's just part of that cycle of accumulation and then cleansing, and the need to be in that state of innocence is to wash away what has been accumulated. And there's not a positive or negative associated with that. It's just a cycle. In the same way that the land goes through that cycle as well. So like if you look at the earth, you see it going through these cleansing processes, and it doesn't have to be in a judgment. It just gets dirty, and then it cleans, and then the rain comes, and then it goes back to the water. So those cycles are part of that beauty. So I'm going to share the screen. And so, and now I, for some reason, feel like I'm saying this one too. So it says, "V'rachzu Aaron uvanav mimenu es yedehem v'es raglehem," and Aaron and his sons should wash their hands and feet in water drawn from it. So, oops. Okay, that's the exact same one as the next one. So basically it's making a copper laver and a stand for it, and you should place this in a tent of meeting, They should put water, and then when Aaron and his sons do the rituals and they do this service, since they need to be in a state of innocence, that they're required to wash their hands to cleanse, so that they can do the ritual with innocence. Who wants to read the next one?
I'll read it, Psachyah.
Do you have it? Do you have it on my screen, or do you have it on?
I have it. I'll read it from the screen.
Okay.
Okay, is that okay?
Yeah.
From Shulchan Aruch, is that where I'm reading from? Or
Yeah.
from, okay. Or Chaim for 18. The following things require washing the hands in water. After them. One who rises from bed, goes out of the bath.
There's going to be the potpourri of different things.
Oh my goodness, yeah, I'm seeing that as we go. Or the bathhouse, one who cuts his nails, takes off his shoes, touches his feet, or washes his head. Some say also one who goes among the dead, or touch the dead, one who cleanses his clothes of lice, has sexual intercourse, touches a louse, or touches his body with his hand. Anyone doing any of these things and not washing his hands, if he is a scholar, his studies are forgotten. And if he's not a scholar, he goes out of his mind. Wow, pretty heavy.
Okay, so he's serious. He even decided to put in some threats there. What is the Shulchan Aruch means a set table, and it's a restatement of Jewish law written by Rav Yosef Cairo. So who wants to read this next one? Number 6.
We can discuss the one before, or just stop?
Yeah, if anyone wants to discuss it, yeah.
Oh, would you elaborate? Is anything? I mean, it's just, I'm concerned about the last lines. If he's a scholar, his studies are forgotten. And if he's not a scholar, he goes out of his mind. I just was wondering why. I understand the statements, but I'm just wondering why a guy wrote that he would go out of his mind. Well, what was in his mind? I'm wondering what was in his mind that you think that it was interpreted that way.
Well, he's implying that part of this ruach tuma is has to do with the mind, right? So it's like
interesting how the lice and the sexual intercourse are right next to each other, and question of cleanliness. I mean, it seems to be mostly a question of being clean, as opposed to any ritual washing of hands that we perceive like before we challah or something like that.
Yeah, is that interesting?
Different types of washing hands.
So the Shulchan Aruch here is associating all of these things as this is definitely like the list of cleanliness, right? Ways in which you get dirty, and if you don't, I guess it's like the people that say that like a dirty desk or a messy desk is a cluttered mind. I have a messy desk and a cluttered mind, so yeah, but he's associating those two things: the mind, which is a lot of times associated with spirit, right, and in this cleanliness. Yeah, I think we could actually move on to the next one, because there's just like a list of a number of interesting ones that I wanted to at least look at.
Well, this one's interesting. One should be careful to wash one's hands 3 times in order to remove the foul spirit, the spiritual effects from sleeping from them.
Yeah. so there's the other list. So this one is a spiritual one, and after you you fall asleep, um, it's it's like a small death. It's called 1/60th of death. So it's basically your body goes into a state where the thing that animated you is almost gone. It's often some sort of internal world, and externally you're down to just a um, like a vegetative state, and it's then that the ruach tum is holding on in your body, and when it leaves, the last thing it does is holds on to the fingertips, and so you wash your hands. Who wants to do this one? These are all good. This is all the Shulchan Aruch's advice. All right, I'll do this one. One should not put his hands in his mouth, ears, eyes, or nose before washing one's hands. Why? Why do you think that? What do they all have in common?
They're talking about the senses. It seems sense of smell, sense of sight. I don't know. I mean, they're naming senses. It seems
they're like the orifices,
right.
but they're the ones that give access to your consciousness.
Right.
They're like the gates into your soul. So if your hands are dirty, you're touching them, and it's like, is that what it seems?
They're all holes in your face, and through the holes, a lot of things can enter to your body. So it's kind of like places to be cautious about. And it's less, how would you say? It's less obvious like to touch the other holes, you know? So they talked about the frontal upper holes.
By the way, I just, there's like, with every Jewish thing, there's like, billions of sources. So I didn't use the ones that were describing those holes because there's limits to, there's also that. It's actually one of the reasons why the one person gives why you should wash your hands after you wake up in the morning, says is because while you're sleeping, you're unknowingly touching all your holes. That's what it says. And so you wake up, I mean, like you don't realize you did, but you did. So anyways, anything else that came up from that one?
I think I like this on number 8. I like that one. Right there it goes to the 60 breaths at night. That's what you were talking about, 1/60th of leaving. So the fact that is the spirit of impurity departs from his entire body, with the exception of his hands, or does not depart from them until he pours water over each hand separately 3 times, which you do in the morning. And you also do before, it's sort of in the ritual. So I think that it seems to me that's the one we pay most attention to, is this one. When I think about the washing of the hands when we first wake up, before we say, tefillah.
Yeah. So the Shulchan Aruch Harav is another restatement of the Shulchan Aruch, and he's trying to give more context to the spiritual aspect. There's a question, but why before washing, not after? Is it for not contaminating the water? Yeah, well, the way it works is that you're washing your hands, and then the washing of the hands, the water does get contaminated, and so you don't want to you don't use that water for any other purpose. And in fact, I don't even know if I included it in here, but there's also like, you don't want to pour it into anywhere. You want to pour it onto the ground, and you want to put it into a vessel, and then you don't want to pour it into your house, and you want it to get out of you, bring it out outside of the house. So it's sort of like it cleanses it, but then it itself receives that. And here we get the Mishnah Berurah, which is a commentary on those halachot, those laws, and it is going to give reasons. Who wants to read this one? He tries to explain it. Cool.
The reason for the ordinance of washing is for two reasons. One, the custom of truma. Since hands are active and touch all things, in the time when the laws of ritual purity were practiced, tuma and tahara, when the priests ate truma, they were required to wash their hands according to the rabbinic law prior to eating truma, so that they wouldn't render it impure through their contact. And so that the priests would be accustomed in this, it was enacted on each individual who eats bread that he is forbidden to eat until he washes his hands. And now that priests don't eat truma because of impurity, this edict was not canceled, so that Jews will be used to eating in purity when the second temple is built quickly in our days. 2, another reason, cleanliness and holiness, and these are related in the Gemara.
There is a lot of Jewish assumptions going into that paragraph. It's really funny. One of them is well, first of all, just to give context, truma is okay. Eating in the Torah is very, very is very central. So at the giving of the Torah, which is Shavuot, is coming up in a week. At the giving of the Torah, it says that after they saw the revelation of Har Sinai, they sat and they ate before God. The other thing is that most of the rituals in the temple are essentially an act of going and eating with your Creator. So you take the first fruits, and you take the wheat harvest, and you take your flocks or whatever, and you have a meal with the Creator, which is that's what this life is. It's an opportunity to have. It's a meal time with the Creator. That's life. So you sort of it's like the sort of highest ritual moment is this process of eating in a state of acknowledgement of participating in this the meal of life. So the truma is like a ritualized form of that, where the Kohen eats truma, which is now food that is holy. It's like holy food. And they needed to wash their hands. So one of the interesting things about the Torah and the way it legislates advice a lot of times is that we're all like thinking about each other, and a lot of times we do things because for other people, not as like a favor for other people, but we enact behaviors to help each other. And that I might be enacting a behavior that I don't need to do, but I'm doing it for your sake. And you might be enacting a behavior which you don't need to do, but you're doing it for my sake. For instance, like if you have a friend who can't handle their drink, and you can handle your drink just fine, but you know that you don't want to, make them stumble, so you don't have a drink that with at the table, or you only have a little and then you take it away. So you're really just ruining your night, because you could perfectly handle your drink and there's no issue whatsoever. But you're doing that because you're in it together with them. And so the same way of looking at law here is that because the priests need to be used to washing their hands, so everyone washes their hands, so that that's just customary, so it just happens, and so therefore they're washing. And then in a state of exile where it no longer applies, we're still doing it because we want to be accustomed to it, right? So even if in one time period it's not relevant, you're still doing it because you want to be caring for the next moment. Like today, I don't need to take a moment to reflect, but I make it a habit to every day take a moment to reflect, so that the days that I need them, I make that space, I make that ritual space for. Oh yeah, here. So hand washing before morning prayer should not be performed over the ground, but rather into a vessel. By the way, it also says you could just dip your hands and take them out. And also, if it's a river or living water, then it works as well. It shouldn't be used for any other purpose. You should take the vessel from water with your right hand, and then transfer it to your left hand, and then put it to the right hand, and then transfer it to the left hand. So here you have this is like it's like a ritualized dance, right, from right to left. And in Kabbalah, right is chesed, which is love, and left is gevura, which is boundaries. And you have the dance between them, which is tiferet, which is beauty, which is the harmony. So you're transferring from love, and love requires boundaries. And then once you have boundaries, you need to have a balance between love and boundaries, and that's tiferet. And so this ritual that is at one point, like Alan described, is one point seemingly a list of just cleanliness. When you get dirty, you need to wash your hands, right? It's good advice. And then there's also, but there's a spiritual tiredness and sort of veil of death that is on me when I'm in the sleep state. And so that to wash it away, to become fully alive, I need to wash my hands. So it's being layered with a spiritual cover. And then now it's taking a sort of like an aesthetic of the ritual, and it's adding to that as well.
I think it's so it's so beautiful that this is pointed out, because we all do this. I mean, we all do this. It's our tradition to do this before we have challah in the morning. But to think of this, you sometimes you just do ritual by rote, because that's what this is what you're supposed to do before you go wash your hand. Go, wash. Just say go wash. But here, to see that, thinking of it as a kavanah, as a dance, is now, to me right now, I now have a whole new a whole new purpose, and I can see it now. The beauty of chesed and gevura and tiferet is the dance. So I just think it's so lovely. So it's given me a whole new look at it.
Yeah, and the idea is if you're washing your hands for because you're afraid of a plague, right? So that intention itself is good enough, right? But the one of the beauties of the physical world is, I forgot who told it to me, who said life experience is provided, just add meaning, right? So You get experiences, add your meaning. So you can fight about which meaning, what story you want to tell about the experiences, but part of the really beautiful thing is you can just fill it with meaning. So in one act of washing your hands, you could be doing it because of you don't want to get a plague. You could be doing it because to remind yourself to wake up and open up your eyes and don't walk through life in a sleep state. And at the same time, you could just be feeling the embodiment in your body of what it means to pour water over your hands and just feel that spiritual, what are those sensations, and what that does to me just physically. And they can all be stacked on each other. So it's all happening with a richness to the experience, so that it's not just an experience that you're doing. You're not just doing it for, I don't want to get sick. And you're not doing it just for the feeling of it. You're not doing it you're doing it for all those reasons at once. In Kabbalah, it's called like being, it's where everything is sort of aligned. Who wants to read this next one? I could do it. All right. Oh.
Okay. If one has no water, one may wipe one's hands in a lump of dirt, earth, or dust, or any cleansing agent, and recite a blessing on the cleanliness of hands. And this permits him to pray. It does not remove the evil spirit from them.
Yeah, so in English, it's being translated in all sorts of funny ways. The bad spirit, the foul spirit, the evil spirit, the death spirit, whatever they'll just translate it anywhere they want. Yeah, Ruach Ra, or Tuma, or whatever it is. So what's interesting is, this one I thought was really interesting. He's saying that you could wash your hands in dirt, but that would only clean your hands. but you need the water to spiritually clean it. So if you think about it, I think to a modern mind right now, that would be the opposite. You would say, if I want to clean my hands, I would need to use water. And maybe if I touched the dirt, the earth, then I would have a spiritual cleansing, but I wouldn't be physically clean. But that's not the way he sees it. It's like you can get the stuff off your hands by rubbing it into soil or into sand. But the spiritual thing is the water, the spiritual quality of water, which is going back to that concept of the pre-creation being tohu v'bohu, being cold, dark, and wet, and the potential and pre-creation and post-creation being this place, this womb of water, which is like the mikvah, which is like the sea, and that everything returns to. So the water sort of returns to that potential, and then you go back to innocence. And so that therefore you need the water to do that. But the earth can work in a temporary thing. It's also a tree.
In modern time, it will be like alcohol gel and hand sanitizer can clean your hand, but spiritually you have to add water to this.
Yeah, it's a whole nother level that there's some people that feel like the Ruach Tum is actually talking about pathogens. That's what it's talking about. So water will clean it, right? Because it's like the plague, and each one of these little microbes are like little spirits. So I want to be able to get to this one, and usually we go for like an hour and a half, and I wonder if we should read this one. This one is heavy. but I thought we would be able to handle it this class. This one is another example inside of the Torah of washing hands. Does anyone feel called to read it? It's heavy. I can read it. Okay. So this is a certain scene that happens. So if the land that Havaya, your God, is assigning you to possess, someone slain is found lying in the open, the identity of the slayer not being known. Your elders and magistrates shall go out and measure the distances from the body to the nearby towns. So with everything in the Torah, we're talking about Bronze Age. This is a Bronze Age life, right? So one of the things is there's no law. It's just a place of very, very close to what, just natural law. Just there's some laws in the cities, and there's no policemen, there's no armies roaming around, there's no borders. Borders don't exist. No maps. No one has a map. There's no. A king might have a map, and it's his secret possession that he would never show to anyone. The life is very different. So here, the wilderness, the midbar, the wilderness, is just an autonomous zone where no one's in control of that at all. You step into the wilderness, it's you and your creator. And so in this story here, they're just find the body lying there and no one knows. So the elders of the nearest town to the body shall then take a heifer which has never been worked and has never pulled in a yoke. It's innocent. And the elders of the town shall bring the heifer down to an ever-flowing wadi. It's like a river that doesn't run out, meaning that it doesn't. It's not seasonal. It's living water. And they'll break the heifer's neck, and the priest, the son of Levi, shall come forward. For Havaya, your God, has chosen them to minister to him and pronounce the blessing of the name of Havaya. And every lawsuit or case or assault is subject to their ruling. So this is, again, talking about the priest, that it has to be in that state of innocence. And then all the elders of the town near the body shall wash their hands over the heifer whose neck was broken, and they shall say this declaration: Our hands did not shed this blood, nor did our eyes see it done. Absolve, Havaya. So now they're telling the source of creation, your people Israel, whom you redeemed, and do not let the guilt from the blood of the innocents remain among your people, and they will be absolved of blood guilt. And thus you will remove from your midst guilt for the blood of the innocent, for you will be doing what is right in the sight of Havaya. So I totally recognize that this is a really heavy story. But the main point is that I don't want to descend into the all of the many side paths that story has in it of sort of wild questions. But the main thing is this act. So they find this body and there's nothing to do about it. It's not like Sherlock Holmes or there's any police or anything. And there's this injustice that happened, right? Something happened here and it wasn't right, but it will never be solved. There's just no way to deal with this thing. And so they go down there, and the elders, meaning the people that would be responsible to be able to restore some justice to a situation, they go there and they wash their hands. And what does that mean now that they're washing their hands? When we think about that also as you wash your hands when you wake up, and you wash your hands right before you're eating, and you wash your hands when you're trying to go into a connection with the Creator. You want to be in the state of innocence. But no one is. And so you have to go through this process of washing your hands. And then the question is, what does that mean, to wash your hands? So the phrase in English is, I wash my hands of this. Does anyone know that phrase? Right? Like, I wash my hands of this, right? Meaning that I don't associate to it. I'm washing my hands of this. I'm not responsible. I'm not associating to this thing. I did my best, and now I'm washing my hands of it. It's this understanding of the limits of our ability to control things in this world, and knowing what we can take action with and what we can't take action with, and how much responsibility that we associate on ourselves for the way life plays out, and how much we associate to the source of being, the source of life. So I'm in the play and I'm in the life. So I feel like I should take on, I'm responsible for everything that happens around me. And therefore I feel sin building up, and I feel dirt building up, and I feel a blame, right? And so you're going through life in a sort of like a death state of heaped on with shame and blame and responsibility that we take on ourselves for what happens around us. And it's true, because we have choices, and we make choices, and we those are given to our hands to make. But all of the other things, those that builds up on us, is something that you just get to the state of, I need to wash my hands of it. So there's this really interesting shlomo. I don't know, is Shlomo there? I'm going to share the screen. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm here.
You want to read the Shlomo?
Yeah, just the English.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Okay. Shall wash their hands and feet.
So this is
Shemot.
this is talking about the Kohanim.
The idea of the Kohanim washing at the Kior is the notion of a silence and removal of touch. For washing demonstrates this, as is written in regards to the Eglah Rufa and Devarim, that the elders wash and say, our hands have not spilled. And by this they are saying that they have no touch, hand in, and part of this act. So too the Kohen who serves is called to wash, meaning that he removes his touch and dissolves his state of mind within the desire of the blessed name, meaning all his device is nothing other than what the blessed name wants. All his service is nothing other than what the blessed name wants. So it is when we wash our hands in the morning and before meals. For here also, before one begins to be involved in embodied needs, one is called to pray to the blessed name, that if something falls into one's hands from the things of this world, in that it is, heaven forbid, against the desire of the blessed name. So he requests from the blessed name to silence and remove his desire from this. And even if it is towards a thing which is allowed, in which it is found good and its opposite. For if one eats something which is neutral and afterwards goes with this energy and does a transgression, then it appears that in this he didn't receive the good energy within this thing. On this one washes, on this prayer to the blessed name, that in all things one receives nothing except the good that is found in it. For an inheritance that comes to one from some other place is a gift on which there is no inheritance. And this it was established that the reading on the key are before prayer, and before the reading on sacrifices, service, mainly that one doesn't pray for anything except for what the blessed name wants. Thank you.
Can you just unpack that? Because there's a lot there.
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
we can unpack it. Thank you, Shalom.
You're
Well,
welcome.
it's fine. So the idea of the Kohanim washing at the kier is the notion of a silence or removal of touch. And then it's saying, for the washing demonstrates, as is written in the Egel Rufa, that the elders wash and say, our hands have not spilled. And by this, they're saying they have no touch, no nagia, right? So nagia in Hebrew also is touch, and it's also like side in the sense, or like perspective, right? So it's like from my angle. So there, how does, so you have when I'm looking at it from my perspective, that I'm doing these actions, and the world is like the Meshach's teacher Simcha Bunim said that each person, he actually advised that you should have 2 pieces of paper in each one of your pockets. One of them says, the whole world is created for me, and the other one says, I am nothing but dust and ashes. So you should, there's one thing, like from the internal, the experience of that you're making all your decisions, and that you're responsible for all your decisions, and everything you're doing is, the life is like on a, this is like one perspective. Life is on like a scale. And as I'm moving forward, I am the determining factor of not just everything that's happening in my life, but the culmination of that perspective is that the little things that I do have this massive global effect too, right? So as you continue to be in that perspective, then you're like, I wasn't nice to somebody today, and that's why a war broke out this afternoon. Right? So like, I wasn't nice this morning, and now I read on the news that a war broke out, and that was clearly a result of me, the little butterfly, flapping its wings, and a hurricane happened, and that's like one way of thinking, that every little choice that you make is so vastly important, and the whole world is tied to it on some deep level. That's one perspective. The other perspective, and that's an important perspective because it brings you to action, and it puts responsibility and thoughtfulness and mindfulness in what you're doing. The other perspective is you're watching how nothing that you're doing is actually sourced in you. That the vast amount of resources that went into you, and the things that you've learned, like somebody's ideas are basically like a culmination of all their teachers, right? And all the books they've read and the experiences they've had. Like, what is the new idea that one has? It's just a particular combination of the teachers and thoughts that you've been exposed to, right? So in that sense, it's just the pouring out and the flowing of all the resources and that poured into you, and now the things that you're doing is just a result of that. And really, this whole entire world is just the expression of the desire to be, of the Creator to come into existence, and your little part of that is like a peel of garlic, to think that you're having any control over this, because you didn't even create yourself. So who you are is not even something that you made a decision about being. So you are just a complete expression of like a petal on a tree. And to imagine that you're responsible for anything that's going on is just like hubris. And that's the other perspective. one of them is not the secular perspective, and the other one is the religious perspective. They're both sacred, and they're both secular perspective. They're both it's just a matter of an internal view or an external view. So part of the building up of the burdens of responsibility of the first view is just heaping on responsibility and blame for everything around you and everything that happens. That's like the dirt, right? And in order to have your mitzvah and to do an action and to make something, you have to have that perspective. And when you feel like you're taking action, that's the way it's the only way to move in this world. But then you accumulate all this blame, and the thing that washes it away is the admittance that you're not in charge, and that you didn't create yourself, and you're not the source of this, and you don't even know what's going on, right? I don't even know what's going on. I'm just telling stories about the stuff that I know, and that's like letting go of that. And so the act of washing your hands is I wash my hands of this, like I'm participating in it, and I'm thinking. But when it gets too much, I just admit, listen, I'm playing this game and I'm trying to do what I can, but in the end, I'm standing in a wilderness and I'm washing my touch, my connection to it. It's not like touch in the sense of becoming disconnected from life, but it's the sort of responsibility of that you're the authority on life, just letting go of that. And when that happens, then you move into the state of innocence. It's just like a bird is innocent. It's not walking around with accumulated years of shame and blame, blaming others and shame. It's just innocent. It made mistakes, sure, but it's just living, and it's not this. It doesn't have those. So washing hands brings you to that state. So I guess we'll try to. Any thoughts about that? Oh, maybe I see there's chats actually. It's a very relieving Torah. Health is living in tension between two energies, always pulling at each other to find that happy medium. Yeah, so it's like the same process of going cleansing and getting dirty, and cleansing and dirty. When you wake up in the morning, you cleanse yourself and you're clean, and then you just deal with the day, and you'll end up needing a shower, right? And then take a shower, and then you're clean, and then you start the process over again. And on the spiritual level, that's also the mental energy of imagining and taking responsibility for everything, as if you're this actor and you make actions in life, and everything that's happening to you is your own fault, right? Or it feels good also because you can take credit for things also. So it can be like, you know why I'm so successful? It's because of how smart I am and whatever. That's also a motivation. And that also is getting dirty. So the Kohen who serves is called to wash his hands because he removes his touch and dissolves his state of mind and desire within desire of the blessed name, meaning that all his service is nothing other than the blessed name once. So to go into that state of innocence, he washes his hands, not just of everything that's happening around him, but of his very self. He says, I didn't create myself, and I'm even removing that ownership. I don't even own myself. Like I'm one with this flow, and I'm not holding on to that. So it is when we wash our hands in the morning or before meals. For here also, before one begins to be involved in embodied needs, one is called to pray to the blessed name, that if something falls into one's hands from the things of this world, in that it is, heaven forbid, against the desire of the blessed name. So he requests from the blessed name to silence or remove his desire from this, and even if it is towards a thing which is allowed, in which is found good and its opposite. Okay, so what he's saying is if something comes to me during the day and it seems like the right thing to do, I'm praying now, don't let me want it unless it's good, right? I'm not interested in taking actions that are against the will. And once he's letting go of that, then you get to an understanding that everything that is happening and every action that a person takes, it was exactly the action that the Creator meant the person to take. So it's sort of like living on, at least the way I think the way he's describing it, it's like on a pin. And everything that happened from this moment back was exactly the way it was always supposed to be. So from the moment every new moment steps in, no longer lost in second guessing what happened in life, or second guessing the actions that I took or the people around me, but every single thing happened exactly the way it was supposed to happen. And there's no sort of a bad intention or bad spirit behind me. Every single thing happened exactly the way it was supposed to happen, and it was good. And now the only thing I have to worry about is this very next moment. So in that moment, the very next moment, I'm back in myself and I'm looking, okay, I have a responsibility, and these actions that I'm going to be taking are going to have consequences and results, and I have a responsibility to this action. But the minute the action is done, then I wash my hands of it, and it was coming straight from the source of being, the way it was always meant to be, and I'm not going to second guess it. That's just the way it was. It's exactly the way it was always going to happen. But now I'm back in my real-time mask, and I have to not be saying it's, oh, whatever I do is exactly the way it's always supposed to happen. I take the responsibility that in that moment, and I say I have to understand the consequences of the action that I'm taking. But the minute it's done, then it washes away. For if one eats something which is neutral and afterwards goes with this energy and does, so you ate something and it's just like in the sense of that it's fuel, and then it appears that in this he didn't receive good energy within this thing, meaning that it seems that the action that I took was a waste, right? So like I ate this plant and the whole plant grew so that I could have energy so I could ruin the day, right? So yesterday I really failed. So it seems that all the energy and all the resources that went into my body to have that failure was now wasted, right? So on this, that's what it seems like. So on this, one washes. On this prayer to the blessed name, that in all things one receives nothing except the good that is found in it. Meaning that you don't go into that state of thinking that there was a wasted moment and there was a failure in anything that happened in your life, but that you receive nothing but the good that was in it. Meaning, like in the same way of life. Definition of life is experiences given, just add meaning. So if you're holding that, then the meaning that you're adding is that you find only the good in it. So for an inheritance that comes to one from another place is a gift on which there is no inheritance. On this, it was established. We could probably read the Hebrew for that. Because it's very beautiful. Ki nachla habo lo la'adam, because an inheritance, and a nachla is like a river, right? The river that pours out to a person, and for another place, matana Allah shelo yereshenu. So on this, it was established that the reading on the kiyur before the prayer and before reading sacrifices, mainly that one doesn't pray for anything except for what the blessed name wants. Any thoughts about that one? So I know that we only have a certain amount of time, but that is, so the Meshach is bringing down it's not just like a symbol. So when one is washing their hands, at each one of these states, they're washing their nageya, their touch and their connection in the thing. So I hold up, it's like I wash my hands before I eat bread. I wash my hands when I start my day. I wash at each one of these moments, I say to myself, it's like, it's every single time I wash my hands, I remember the spiritual aesthetic and the memory that wake up from this dream that I am in control of myself and that I created myself and that I'm responsible for everything that happens, even, wars that are breaking out in other countries or, because of my spiritual effort or anything like that. Just remind myself that I literally, I'm like a bird, like innocent and innocent of everything, and that everything that was meant, everything that has happened was exactly the way it was always meant to happen and the way that the Creator wanted to come into being. And so I wash my hands, and then I realize that I'm as innocent as a bird, and then and then move on. So before I'm going to eat, right? Because that's the idea of bread. Before I'm going to eat, meaning to take part in life, which is this cycle of eating, I wash my hands. I wash my hands of that story, and then I just embrace the flow of it. Okay. Also, if we don't keep a vessel for hand washing, is that or I don't know about everybody. This that's advice questions, but I mean in halacha it has this. You have a vessel, and then you have a cup, and you keep the vessel and the cup by your bed, so that when you wake up, you don't even go to walk into the bathroom or anything. You just have the cup, and you wash your hands, and the same thing with going to the bathroom. But a lot of people do different things. Some people don't do that, and they just walk to the bathroom and wash their hands. Because it depends on the piety of the person, of how much. I also know that some people, it's a rarity. Some people, they want to put on their tefillin immediately upon waking. So they actually will have their talit and tefillin by their bed, and then when they wake up, they wash their hands, and then they put on their tefillin like right away. So, anyways, so then they would need that. But I hope that if you look at this, it's all these layers of hand washing. So at the same time that you're cleaning your hands of physical dirt, you're also waking yourself up spiritually, and then you're also letting go of the entire existential story that you're telling about yourself, and just embracing the innocence and simplicity of it. And as a meditation, you can do that every single time you wash your hands. So rather than having a special moment where you go and try to do that, you just you have all those opportunities many times in the day to wash your hands. And now, I don't know, but where there's such import in washing your hands, and so many more times of washing your hands, it is like a message more and more and more to me and to each one of us of being able to let go of that, being able to wash our hands. That's my thoughts. Any other thoughts?
I wonder about the place where he talked about the bad spirit that stayed on your hands. I don't know if he talked about it or I missed it. So why stain in the hand? Why hands? The bad spirit? The bad, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, you mean
60 breath?
Yeah, because it's holding onto your fingernails. Your fingernails are like vessels. They're like klipot, right? In Hebrew, shell is a klipa, and the most external part of your body, the one that's the most shell-like, is your nails, like the most external, and it holds on to the most external part.
Yeah, but you have also nails in your foot and you have your teeth.
Yeah, actually, did you see it says you wash your hands and your feet? But nowadays people wear socks and shoes. So they, in the beginning it was, so in the beginning it was your hands and your feet. Some people still do that. So Shlomo says, wash hands, wake up, let go, be present, see a new world. That is what God's saying in the movement more now. Yeah, like more and more, right? Like to return to that innocent. Because one of the things that is interesting is like if I want innocence, and then I have to let go of grudges against other people also, right? Like if I want to let go of like accumulated shame or blame, I also there has to be a commensurate forgiveness of other people, and letting go of the grudges, like together. As well, I could hold a grudge, then I also have to accept the blame on myself. But if I want to, if I release all of that, it's like washing my hands. There's also one of the core things is in the Gemara. It says that kol b'dei shemayim, that everything is in the hands of heaven. And the Gemara, so everything is in the hands of heaven, and the Gemara says, excites from the awe of heaven. So really, everything that's happening is happening just the way it's supposed to be. But our perspective and our story, the way we take it, that's our responsibility. I mean, that's the thing that we can do. But the Meshalah says that everything is in the hands of heaven, including the story I tell, like my ability to be able to read, and my ability to the story that I tell about things and the awe of life that I have, that was also all played out. That was all coming just the way it was supposed to happen. So that's, everything is in the hands, right? But when I take an action, I'm taking things into, it's in English too, I'm taking things into my own hands, right? And when I take things into my own hands, then my hands get dirty or my hands get bloody. And then to wash my hands is to allow them to return to that source, that potential of pre-creation, meaning that everything was coming from that source. And so I cleanse my hands, and then I say it's not in my hands, right? And the Ruach Tum is like holding on to the hands that it's on, right? That it's not my hands, so then it doesn't hold on. So I give everybody a bracha that we should be able to have the wisdom of guidance to be able to take things into our own hands and to make choices. And we also should be able to cleanse ourselves of the sometimes paralyzing blame that can be associated with those choices by letting go of them and washing our hands and knowing that everything that happens, everything that will happen is happening just the way it always was going to happen. And that's the Simcha Bunim's 2 pieces of paper. Like, the whole world is created for me, and it's all on my responsibility, and the way the world is because of me and my choices. And the other one is I'm just dust and ashes being blown around, and I'm just subject to that. And both are true. So I give us a bracha that we should be able to hold both of them and use them when we need them.